Have you ever thought the easiest solution could be the most dangerous? This is the story of Zara,
I just want to pay my fees.
a Nigerian university student who just wanted to pay her fees.
But it's never that simple.
But her decision to accept help from sugar daddies led to fear, manipulation, and eternal regret.
One choice, two men, a life she could never take back.
Would you pay the price for easy money?
She only wanted her fees paid, but the price was far greater. This is Zara Eze's story. Would you pay the price? Welcome to Tales by Nnamdi. Subscribe, like, and comment as we journey through another episode.
Oh no, not again. Late payment fees, I can't afford that. I have to pay by Friday.
The notice on the faculty board was simple, almost unremarkable. Yet to Zara Eze, it was nothing short of a thunderclap. The words were printed neatly, quietly, but they carried the weight of doom. All students who had not paid their school fees would not be allowed to sit for examinations. The figure was unforgiving. 198,750. Zara stood frozen, staring at the paper as though it had suddenly gained the power to punish her. Her chest tightened, her breath shallow. This was not just a number. It was a wall closing in on her, separating her from her dreams, from her future. Her father had been bedridden since a construction accident 2 years ago, leaving her mother to shoulder the burden of feeding and educating 4 children with the modest earnings she made selling vegetables at Ogbiti Market. Every naira spent was carefully calculated, every day a struggle. Zara's school fees alone were a mountain her family could not climb without help. Around her, the campus seemed oblivious. Students laughed, debated, and made plans, oblivious to the private storms raging in the hearts of those who, like her, lived on the edge of survival. Zara felt invisible amidst the noise, her mind consumed by the impossible sum that loomed before her. Walking back to her hostel, the familiar hum of daily life greeted her. The generator roared to life, girls queued for the mirrors, some rehearsing TikTok dances, others gossiping in low whispers. The scent of fried indomie drifted from a corner, and the distant sound of a motorbike cutting through the dusty street reminded her of the relentless pace of life that did not wait for anyone. Her roommate, Kamsi, sat cross-legged on her bed, engrossed in her phone, oblivious to the storm brewing in Zara's mind. That night, Zara lay awake on her thin mattress, staring at the ceiling as her thoughts twisted and turned. How could she possibly come up with such an amount? How could her mother manage it? Her siblings looked at her with innocent trust, unaware that their education depended on a miracle. The words on the notice board replayed endlessly in her mind, growing louder with each hour. She remembered the stories she had heard, whispers in the corridors, and among classmates about girls whose fees had been magically paid by men who asked for nothing but company in return. The term sugar daddy had always sounded alien, almost offensive, yet now it seemed like a possible lifeline. Her stomach twisted with both fear and curiosity, her principles clashing with desperation. The night dragged on, each minute heavier than the last. Zara's thoughts wandered through memories, her father's quiet struggle before the accident, her mother's calloused hands, waking before dawn to prepare food and tending her small vegetable stand, and the nights she herself spent studying by candlelight when the electricity was out. School had always been her refuge, her path to a better life, and now it threatened to be ripped away. In the darkness, she whispered a prayer, asking God for guidance, for a way, for a miracle. She imagined a letter of admission that led to graduation, a white gown, a proud mother smiling in the sun. And yet she felt the tug of reality pressing against her dreams. Sleep eluded her. She listened to the distant chatter of other students, the buzzing of mosquitoes, the hum of the generator. In her mind, the seed of a dangerous idea had been planted. She pushed it away at first, recoiling at the thought of compromising her integrity. But the seed persisted, growing quietly, promising a solution to her impossible problem. Morning came slowly, the first rays of sunlight slicing through the cracks in the window. With them came clarity, or perhaps inevitability. Zara knew she could not ignore the problem any longer. Something had to be done. The desperation that had whispered to her in the dead of night now spoke louder. She needed help, and she needed it now. She got up, washed her face with cold water, and stared at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were tired but determined. She carried the weight of her family's hopes, the urgency of the ticking semester, and the heavy burden of a choice she did not yet understand. As she left the hostel, the campus seemed both larger and smaller than before. Larger because the world was full of possibilities, smaller because she felt trapped by the demands of reality. The notice board had not moved, but its message had been internalized. The number, 198,750, was no longer just a figure. It was a deadline, a test, a doorway she must pass through, one way or another. And so with hesitant steps but a determined heart, Zara began her journey, unaware of the roads that lay ahead, the sweet promises that would ensnare her, and the bitter lessons that would shape her future. The day the paper spoke was over, but the story it began had only just started. Zara had thought the first night after seeing the notice would be the hardest, but the days that followed were even heavier. Every lecture she attended, every corridor she walked, the number, 198,750, haunted her. It whispered at the back of her mind, relentless, impossible to ignore. It was during one of these desperate afternoons that Kamsi spoke again, her voice low and cautious. "You don't have to suffer alone," she said, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. "I know someone. He helps students. Paid my cousin's fees last year." Zara stiffened. She knew what Kamsi meant. The idea made her stomach twist, a mixture of fear and hope. She shook her head. "I can't. God will find a way." Kamsi only smiled gently. Sometimes, God helps through people. By evening, curiosity had won. Zara found herself outside a quiet lounge, the kind frequented by businessmen who smoked cigars and whispered into phones. Her heart raced as she waited. She told herself it was just to ask questions, just to understand. Then he appeared, Mr. Obayora, tall, neatly dressed, in his late 40s with a calm, soft-spoken demeanor. His presence was commanding yet gentle, and Zara couldn't help but feel small under his steady gaze. He smiled when he saw her. "You must be Zara," he said warmly. "Kamsi told me you're serious about your studies." She nodded, unsure what to say. "Education is important," he continued. "A woman should not suffer unnecessarily." 2 days later, Zara's school portal reflected paid. Relief washed over her in waves. She collapsed on her bed, covering her mouth, trembling. For the first time in weeks, she felt weightless. She sent her mother a message, her hands shaking with excitement. But with the sweetness came subtle warnings. Obayora began sending money for upkeep, gifts, messages that seemed harmless at first, but carried the undercurrent of expectation. "I don't like seeing you with boys," one text read. "Answer your calls promptly," another instructed. The word loyalty appeared often in his messages, a word that seemed harmless until Zara realized she wasn't receiving help anymore. She was being owned. And when Kamsi mentioned another man, richer and louder, who wanted to help her too, Zara told herself she could manage it. She could control the situation. She told herself she was in charge. But the first threads of entrapment had begun to weave themselves into her life, soft and sweet at first, now slowly binding her to decisions she didn't yet fully understand. The journey into temptation had begun, and Zara was stepping forward with hesitant, trembling feet.
Photos brought you here, but joy will keep you listening. Subscribe now to my channel. Keep enjoying the episode from Tales by Nandi.
Zara thought she had found a solution. The relief of her fees being paid was intoxicating, almost blinding. But the reality she hadn't yet seen was quietly settling around her like a fog. Obayora's influence was growing, and the sweet taste of help had its hidden bitterness. Each day, his messages arrived with increasing insistence. "Where are you? Why didn't you pick my call?" One would read. Another, "You should dress appropriately for your next meeting." Zara told herself these were harmless. After all, she had chosen this path voluntarily. Or so she convinced herself. Yet her nights were restless, her thoughts tangled with fear, guilt, and a growing dependency on the financial security he provided. It was during one of these restless evenings that Kamsi brought news of another man. Chief Emeka, a wealthy businessman in his 50s, was offering to help students. His promise was grander, the gifts brighter, the words smoother. Kamsi's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Imagine what he could do for you, Zara. You could live comfortably, no stress at all." Zara's heart pounded. The numbers, the fees, the looming semester, they all pressed against her like iron chains. She wanted freedom, she wanted security, but at what cost? The first meeting with Chief Emeka was at a hotel lounge near the city's main road. He exuded power, expensive watch, polished shoes, the faint scent of cologne. He smiled at Zara warmly, but his eyes measured and calculating. "You're a smart young woman," he said, leaning slightly forward. "I like to invest in talent. Education opens doors, but money often closes them. Let me help you walk through them." Zara nodded politely, heart racing. She told herself she could manage it, that she could control the situation. But deep inside, a quiet alarm whispered. She was no longer just a student. She was treading into a world where each favor had a price, and each promise came with strings she might not escape. By the end of the week, Zara found herself juggling texts, instructions, and occasional demands from both men. Gifts arrived. Phones, clothes, small amounts of money for personal use. But the subtle weight of ownership pressed heavier with every passing day. And yet, despite the unease, she felt a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time, she could cover her tuition.
I can finally cover tuition, buy extra books, and help my mother. But this comfort feels like a shadow.
The web had deepened, and Zara was at its center, caught between gratitude, fear, and an uncertain future that whispered both possibility and regret. Weeks passed, and Zara had become adept at juggling the attention, instructions, and occasional gifts from Obiora and Chief Emeka. What began as relief had turned into a delicate balancing act, a game of survival that demanded her constant attention. But the first cracks began to show. Small moments of fear crept in, subtle at first, almost unnoticeable. A friend noticed her nervous glances at her phone. A stranger commented on the frequency of her outings, and Zara herself started feeling trapped. One rainy afternoon, Zara's university friend Chinwe approached her quietly in the library. "Zara, I don't mean to pry," she whispered, "but you've changed. You're always anxious, always checking your phone. Are you okay?" Zara forced a smile. "I'm fine," she said, but even to her ears it sounded hollow. She closed her book and walked away, heart pounding. That evening, Obiora called her repeatedly. "You need to meet me?" His voice was calm but insistent. "I'm worried." Zara hesitated. She knew she was being watched, guided, controlled. But she didn't dare say no. At the lounge that night, he smiled, but the warmth had thinned, replaced by an expectation she could not ignore. Chief Emeka, on the other hand, increased the gifts and financial support, but subtle pressures came with them. Invitations to dinners, events, and private meetings that left Zara feeling uncomfortable. The line between help and control blurred, leaving her trapped in a web she couldn't escape. The first night Zara returned home after a meeting, she sat alone in her room, staring at the ceiling. The gifts lay untouched beside her. Her reflection in the mirror revealed a girl she hardly recognized. Tense, fearful, and already a little hardened. She realized the price of her sweetness was not just her freedom. It was her peace of mind, her innocence, and her sense of control. By the end of the week, Zara understood something she had refused to admit. The help that had saved her education had come at a cost she wasn't ready to pay.
Sometimes the choices we make in silence shape the rest of our lives, but not every price is worth paying. Continue to enjoy.
Zara had thought she could control the situation. She had thought she could manage Obiora and Chief Emeka, enjoy the financial relief, and still remain herself. But reality was crueler than she imagined. The first incident came quietly. A whisper in the hostel corridors. Rumors about Zara's arrangements had begun to circulate. Friends looked away in awkward silence. Some laughed behind her back. Every text she sent to Obiora and Chief Emeka was now tinged with fear. One wrong move, one late reply, and her carefully balanced world could crumble. One night, as rain pounded against the hostel windows, Zara received a call from Chief Emeka. His voice was sharp, unlike before. "You must come now," he demanded. There was no warmth, no patience, only expectation. Heart racing, Zara obeyed, knowing that refusal was not an option. But when she arrived, she found the line she had crossed. The comfort she had accepted had already become chains. Gifts, promises, and sweet words had transformed into control, manipulation, and subtle threats. Obiora's calls had grown more frequent, more commanding. The soft words of guidance had become instructions. Dress properly. Answer promptly. Don't talk to anyone else. Zara's nights were restless. Her reflection in the mirror no longer belonged to the girl who had dreamed of graduation and a better life. That girl was lost beneath layers of fear, anxiety, and compromise. But the final blow came unexpectedly. One morning, Zara's mother fell ill badly. The money Zara had been saving to support her family was gone, spent on the men's demands. Her siblings needed her. Her dreams, her very education, now seemed fragile. Zara wept for hours, realizing the true cost of her choices. What had begun as a desperate act to pay school fees had led her into a world where freedom, dignity, and peace of mind were all collateral. And yet there was a lesson, bitter and profound. She would survive this. She would rise from it, scarred but wiser. The story of Zara Eze became a cautionary tale, whispered among the corridors of universities and homes. The sweetness of easy money often carries the bitterest regret. She vowed silently, looking at her reflection one last time, that she would reclaim her life, her education, and her peace, no matter how long it took. The journey through despair had ended, but the path to redemption had just begun. Months had passed since the storm of Zara's choices. The rainy nights, the anxious calls, and the subtle chains of control had slowly loosened. Zara had decided she would no longer be defined by the sweetness of easy money, nor by the fear that had haunted her nights. She returned to her studies with renewed focus, dedicating herself to every lecture, every assignment, every exam. Obayora and Chief Emeka's calls became distant echoes, their gifts untouched. For the first time, she felt true agency, a sense of control over her life that had been missing for months. One afternoon, Zara walked through the campus courtyard, the sun warm on her face. She noticed Kamsi waving at her from the hostel window. The familiar smile reminded her of the friendship she had almost lost. She waved back, a soft smile of her own forming. Later that week, she met a young graduate at a campus mentoring program, Mr. Aide, a former student who had built a scholarship fund for struggling students. Unlike Obayora and Chief Emeka, his help came with no strings. Only guidance, encouragement, and opportunity. "You've been through a lot," he said gently, "but your strength brought you here. Don't forget, the choices you make now define who you become." Zara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She realized that the real power wasn't in money, gifts, or control. It was in her choices, resilience, and determination. Years later, Zara would look back at the months of chaos and temptation, not with shame, but with gratitude for the lessons learned. She had survived, grown, and now she could help others avoid the same pitfalls. The girl who once trembled in fear at her first sugar daddy's call had become a woman of strength, wisdom, and hope. The story of Zara Eze became a cautionary tale whispered across campuses. Easy money comes with chains, but resilience builds freedom.
My younger ones, in our land the elders say, a chick that follows every call may not hear the cry of the hawk. Not every voice that calls your name means you well. Learn to listen, not just with your ears, but with your spirit. Do not envy loud success. Sometimes the quiet farmer sleeps better than the rich man who borrowed his peace. In this country, people will promise you shortcuts, but shortcuts sometimes lead to places you cannot easily come back from. If you ever feel lost, go back to what your mother taught you. Go back to what your conscience tells you. Go back to who you were. You are not late. You are not small. You are not powerless. You are becoming. And one day, you will look back for choosing the harder road, the road that kept your soul alive. May your future be bigger than your fears, and may you never forget who you are becoming. Remain blessed.
Thank you for joining us on Tales by Nnamdi, where the voices of our ancestors speak through every story. I hope this tale has touched your heart, stirred your imagination, and carried you into the world of our people. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss another journey into the wonders of folklore. Until next time, let the stories guide your soul and awaken the spirit within.